Mud City. It was a peninsula surrounded by water on three sides: the Sea of Marmara, the Bosphorus, and the Golden Horn. It is surrounded by high walls on all sides, even overlooking the water. On the western side, which is the only land side of the city, the length of the wall was up to 7.5 kilometers continuous. It was not a large fence inventory. It was made up of 3 high walls. It separates each wall from the other, 10 meters. Not only this, it was in front of the huge wall, a trench 20 meters wide. It is 10 meters deep and filled with water. It was the only means of entry into the city. There are bridges at every gate, which was as soon as there was any danger or siege on the city. As for the way to enter from the sea, the southern side and the western side, overlooking the Sea of Marmara and the Bosphorus, it was surrounded by a huge wall for a distance of 8.5 kilometers, and the eastern side was closed with huge chains that prevented ships from entering the Golden Horn from the ground up, which was that the Byzantine ships were entering the Golden Horn, sheltering in it, and then lifting the chains behind them. Therefore, besieging the city from this side was impossible. The whole city was completely secured, even on water sources. In the strangest way a human mind can imagine. It is by the Lycus River. An entire river is hidden underground. The Byzantines built a roof for the river, from the beginning of the source to the estuary, passing through the trench and the walls. This is what made them benefit greatly from it. It is the severity of their insurance for this river. They never told anyone about it, and no one knows anything about him, so that no spy reveals his experience and discovers his secret. And if any siege occurs, no one can cut off the water because no one knows its source in the first place. With this care and fortification, there was another source of water, which was buried underground pipes extending for a distance of 100 kilometers to bring water from the mountains of Bulgaria. These fortifications and tight measures made this city the most powerful city known by history. Attempts to open it failed. After we know the shape of the city and its fortifications, we return to our story, which starts from the time of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror taking over the rule of the Ottoman Empire. The 7th Sultans and the father of good deeds and the title of Caesar. His rule began with truces and treaties with his enemies, until he devoted himself to one enemy, Constantine, which broke its covenant with the Ottomans. The Sultan lasted for a year preparing for the conquest. He gathered a huge army of 100 to 150,000 soldiers. The army was equipped with the most powerful and modern weapons such as rifles, which was a boom at the time, cannons and gunpowder. He spent a lot of money on these things, and not only that, he brought in a Hungarian engineer named Kurban, and he gave him twice the money he asked for. That's in order to make a huge cannon, and actually succeeded in the manufacturing process of the Muslims. But they had the advantage of a fortified city, and they had a small fleet that stood in the Golden Horn, about 26 ships. And when the preparations of the conqueror reached the governor of the city, Constantine XI, Constantine tried at the time to bribe a group of advisors, conqueror, to influence his decision. But these attempts failed, because the insistence of the conqueror was greater than anyone. Then Constantine closed the city gates. The Muslims who were there were arrested, and he sent to the conqueror telling him that he would defend the city until the last drop of his blood. He began preparing for the siege, and shipping the city with supplies and ammunition. And he did not stop at that. He sent to Europe asking for extensions. On the other hand, the conqueror gave orders to level the road from Edirne to Constantinople, and then the army began to move with weapons and ammunition, and of course the huge Sultan. He was dragged by about 60 bulls, and around him were 400 soldiers, 200 each in order to protect the cannon from slipping. Al-Fatih ordered the fleet commander to move. The Sultan arrived in the city. The first thing he did, he pitched his tent in front of the gate of St. Romas and prayed 2 units of prayer to God. Then he distributed the commanders and soldiers in their places. Cannons were erected in front of the city wall, including the most important cannon. It is the Sultan cannon. Then he sent a messenger to Constantine. Tell him surrender. You have safety for yourself, your owner, and your entourage if he wanted to get out of Constantinople. He goes to his brothers Demetrius and Thomas in Greece. He is safe to go out with all his possessions. And not only him, but whoever wants from his people also has the right to do so. But Constantine refused to surrender the city. The Sultan declared a siege on Constantinople. On the second day, he gave orders, backfilling parts of the trenches. He gave the artillery orders to start firing at the markets. Everyone was surprised by the power and magnitude of the Ottoman cannon. The ejaculation lasted for 2 weeks. But due to the strength and thickness of the markets and their large size, the slanderer did not succeed in invention. Besides, the Byzantines were repairing any holes in the wall, and they backed them up at night while the Ottomans were resting the cannons so that they would not be destroyed by the heat of the beating. But due to the strength and thickness of the walls and their large size, the slanderer did not succeed in invention. Besides, the Byzantines were repairing any holes in the wall, and they backed them up at night while the Ottomans were resting the cannons so that they would not be destroyed by the heat of the beating. The situation remained as it was. These are hitting, and these are retaliating. Until the 14th of April. Because of the heavy beatings, the Sultanate cannon exploded, and dies next to him the Hungarian engineer Kurban. Then the conqueror decided to carry out the first attempt to storm the city. It was April 18th. Thus, the intrusion attempt failed and rose to the 200 martyrs. Then a number of ambassadors arrived to the Sultan. They told him that Hungary had broken its covenant with the Ottoman Empire, and the European army is preparing to seize Ottoman lands. He is busy in the siege. This was their attempt, until they returned to his continued siege of the city. But the Sultan did not care about that and completed the siege. In order to conquer the city before the arrival of the European army to his country, on the second day, corresponding to the 20th of April, 4 huge Genoese ships arrived, filled with supplies and munitions to help the Byzantines. Then the Sultan summoned the commander of the Ottoman fleet, Süleyman Baltaoglu, and he said to him, "Either you bring me these ships, don't come back to me alive." The Sultan himself watched the scene from the ground, and there was a confrontation between the Genoese ships and the Ottoman ships, and the Genoese ships proved a great ability to confront because of its large size and huge cannons. The crew of the ship was unique because he has a lot of experience even before the founding of the fleet. The docking was very great. Many Ottoman ships were burnt, and when the conqueror saw this scene, he himself went to the sea and called all the Ottoman ships not to withdraw. But the fleet commander was forced to withdraw, and the Genoese ships succeeded in passing and entering the Golden Horn, and they closed the horn behind them with the chain. The victim of this battle, nearly 10,000 martyrs. The Sultan was angry at this disastrous outcome and set up a court-martial for the commander of the fleet. At the port of Dab, everyone issued an order to execute him, and it was a shocking decision. At that time, a number of ministers and janissary leaders tried to mediate with the Sultan in order to pardon the commander of the fleet. And when the commander of the fleet raised his head and the Sultan watched him, he found that his eye had been lost in the battle, and he was fighting himself. He was not mistaken in the decision to withdraw. Forgive him. But he was removed from office. During trial time, the guns are hitting. The Pacton Tower collapsed. It is a tower in the western walls. Unfortunately, because of the Sultan's distance from the wall at that time, the army was unable to storm. Because he did not take orders, the opportunity was lost for Muslims. Because the Byzantines blocked these openings when the night came. Constantine tried to take advantage of the naval victory that occurred. He sent a messenger, Muhammad the Conqueror, offers him to withdraw and make peace. But the Sultan refused and insisted on the siege. On the second day, the Fatih ordered the implementation of an impossible plan. It is the transfer of a large part of the naval fleet from the port to the Golden Horn. It was a very precise and secret plan. So the soldiers started paving the way, which was high, and stacked trees in the form of a dome and put oil and grease on it, in order to facilitate the movement of ships over it. Indeed, the plan was carried out at night. The ships were towed with oxen along with amputations in their limbs. All these things happened in a complete prison because Muhammad al-Fatih, a defender, to hit all night, until the focus of the Byzantines dispersed to the western side of the city. He also ordered a fire to be lit so that its smoke would obscure the view of the Byzantines, and he ordered that the drums of war be kept ringing at the loudest sound in order to cover the sounds of the raging and the movement of ships. The miracle was not only in the ships walking on land. Indeed, 67 ships were transported in one night. As the morning dawned, all the city's residents were surprised that the Ottoman ships were inside the Golden Horn, and after breaking the lock of the Golden Horn, the Byzantines were shocked, their resolve weakened, on Muslims, which reached their spirits to heaven. They were able to erase any negative impact of the naval defeat. The military purpose was to surround the city from all sides and reduce the pressure on Muslims on the land side. Indeed, a number of soldiers withdrew from the western wall, the fence overlooking the Golden Horn. Then Constantine executed all Muslim prisoners, and they were 206 prisoners. He cut their heads off and threw them at the Ottomans until it breaks their resolve. And on the 6th of May, The urban cannon is back in service and joined the rest of the Ottoman cannons to strike and demolish the city walls. Help God help you improve your feet. After these events, the Sultan started looking for innovative solutions other than the traditional attack. This stage was between the 13th and 12th of May. It is the construction of a pontoon bridge in the Golden Horn from the Galata side of Constantinople. The purpose of the bridge was to pass larger cannons and soldiers from Galata's side to the walls of Constantinople until the pressure increases on this side. It solves the difficulty of bombing the walls from above the warships, which was carrying smaller guns. The second plan, it included 3 attempts to break into the chained ships, and they thought about it. After I said the chain was protected by the Byzantines, and they tried to build tall wooden towers. One tower was about 4 stories tall. This made the Muslims on the same level as the Byzantine soldiers, but unfortunately it was completely burned. Burn them. Therefore, the spending plan failed. But despite this, the Muslims are continuing, and they do not have any sense of defeat, failure, or frustration. This is what made everyone testify to the steadfastness of Muslims in breaking fortifications. On May 23rd, the Sultan sent a diplomatic embassy through Ismail bin Isfandiar to Constantine and chose him because he was a friend of Constantine. The message was that he would survive by himself and be subject to the terms of peace before the fall of the city. This message had a great impact. It caused a dispute and hesitation between the Byzantines inside the city. Do they accept or reject? But Constantine replied the ambassadors and refused to hand over the city. After this rejection, there was a dispute in the opinion of Muslim leaders. Shall we complete the siege or not? Because this has been too long. Many more than 30,000 martyrs fell in the most important battles and incursions. This is in contrast to the martyrs of ordinary days, and their number was also great. But on the 24th and 25th of May, strange things happened. Restored the resolve of the soldiers and leaders again. The signs were from God to install Muslims. These phenomena are recorded in the history of the West, as coincidences have no meaning. But in our religion, it is a confirmation from God to his faithful servants. As your Lord revealed to the angels that I am with you, so those who believed were confirmed. I will cast terror into the hearts of disbelievers. The first phenomenon was on the 24th. The moon was full and there was an eclipse. This is the scariest thing. It is because of an ancient prophecy recorded in the history books, attributed to the founder of the city from 1,000 years. This prophecy was saying that Constantinople would fall on a day when the moon would darken, which should be complete, meaning that the moon will be full, but there will be darkness, and then the city will fall. The eclipse was in the form of a crescent. The crescent was the symbol of Muslims. The second phenomenon is a red light around the Hagia Sophia church. The people of the city saw a strong red light around the dome of the church, and then the light disappeared. This light was seen by Muhammad and the Muslim army from a distance of 5 kilometers. The Byzantines explained these incidents. They said the angel who guards the city, he was a resident of the church and decided to leave. because the city will fall. This matter, which is the departure of the angel, according to their interpretation, has caused them terrible terror and panic. And with the great panic that arose, they held Mass all night. And on the 2nd of the 25th of May, the townspeople woke up. They found it all very foggy. No one can see in front of him even 1 meter throughout the day. This also increased their fear, and they were sure that the city would inevitably fall. As for the Muslims, when they saw these verses and God's confirmation of them and the horror that happened to the infidels, they rejoiced and rejoiced in the promise of the messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him, and were assured of the nearness of God's victory. Then al-Fatih began organizing the army again, until it makes another attempt to break into. He continued slandering and backfilling trenches. The closer the cannons became to the wall, they became stronger and their impact was more severe. And gave a mandatory rest to the teams that will storm. On the faith side, the whole army was fasting as an expression of worship to God. The Quran and the Takbir did not stop in the Muslim camp. This raised the morale of the soldiers before the storming. At that time, the conquerors spent huge rewards for the soldiers. It is enough for one of them to live rich for the rest of his life. He promised them that most of the same time he threatened to kill anyone who fled the fighting. He established an observation team to take over this task. After a difficult day due to the continuous throwing of defenders, at the end of the day, the Byzantines tried to prepare for rest. But in the early hours of the 29th of May, the Ottoman army began implementing his plan, and the voices of Takbir rose among the Muslims. Allah is the greatest. For the first time, he began pressing all the fences at the same time. This is what made the Byzantines in diaspora, and they distributed themselves on all the walls and reduced pressure on the portal of Centromas. And the first wave of storming began with the forces of al-Bash Bazot. It was not the strongest difference in the Ottoman army. And they rushed to attack. And they fought with all their might. Their military actions lasted for 2 hours. They carried out the purpose of the plan. He exhausted the city garrison. Then they withdrew as ordered. The Byzantines thought they would rest. Suddenly, the second wave of attack began. It was the Anatolian squad. They are regular professional forces. I started to clash. The screeching sounds rose again. The attack on the city walls intensified. Holmes, he ordered the call to prayer. The time for the afternoon prayer had come. Asr prayer in Hagia Sophia, and about the capital of the state, from Edirne to Constantinople, it was called Islam Paul. You can imagine how tired the Muslim conquerors were until they delivered the religion to us. With ease and ease, you can also imagine how much effort we make so that we can make this date easier for you. Do not forget to support us with likes and shares, press subscribe and activate the bell